Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing in my Ireland book, and we're still in the Dingle area, but we are out at Dunmore Head. And if you don't know where that is, it's near Dingle, so in the southern western tip of the island. And this is actually where they filmed part of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And you'll recognize it if you are a Star Wars geek. We watch Star Wars, Star Trek, Star anything pretty much in this house. We like it. So if you are into those movies too, or you have family members who are, then they will recognize some of the sights in these photos because they were used in the movie. It was really a very blustery day that while we were there, very overcast. But because of the cragginess of all the rocks, it really lent itself well to the whole environment, I think. So anyway, this layout should be fun. Let's check out my workspace and we'll get started. All right, so if you have been receiving the CM emails here lately, then you would have seen us come out with this wonderful binder. And this binder is just for exactly what it says, creative motivation. And you can purchase this binder still and get these dividers, which will divide your ideas into different categories. They also have sold a bundle of the ideas, all of the virtual crop sketches and the project recipes that came out in 2024 in a very professional, beautifully printed pages front to back. So you have all of them in one place and you can access them all. And I'm mentioning that today because the layout that I'm going to do is actually something that I found in this book. And I found it under the project recipe area, and I think I skipped it. Project playbooks, project guidebooks. I think it's the very first one in here. I thought I was so smart and I flipped it. Yep, project recipes. So I found it in here in amongst all the other project recipes from 2024. And you can see they're all just beautiful because our home office creators created these and then put them out for us all to learn and be excited and use the new collections. So the one we're going to do today is the one that was created for Denim Revival. And if you have this collection, you'll recognize it because it came out with these cute pockets. Now, I'm not going to use pockets on my layout today, but the rest of the layout will be very close to what they have here. And I'm just mentioning that to you because if you bought the Denim Revival, then you may want to go back and revisit this project recipe and add these cute pockets with the photos coming out of them. I just think it's darling. So I'm going to flip this over. These are the 3 papers we are going to need to have to cut. We need a designer paper 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 is actually meant to be cardstock, and they use the cardstock for creating mats as well as for punching these borders. But I'm going to be using vellum to punch those borders today. And I think, I haven't made the decision completely yet, but I think I'm going to use cardstock for the mats. So, but you're going to see the borders are going to be special because we're going to be layering those borders with the vellum. So I hope that it will turn out cute. I haven't a lot of experience with vellum, so I sort of hold my breath every time I go to use it just because I'm not super confident. But I'm excited to try it today. These are the two border maker cartridges that we're going to put together. This is the Elements Edge border maker cartridge, and this one is called Scallop Wave. And both of them are kind of from a little bit ago. So if you don't have them already, you probably can't get them unless you go to an In Search Of site. But I'm doing this so you have the idea, and then you can look at what you have in your stash that might work together and see what you can create for yourself. And hopefully it will inspire you to do something really unique and fun. All right, so I need, once again, I need a designer paper 1 and a designer paper 2, and so I've pre-chosen those, and they are right here. This one is from the Kelly Green Totally Tonal papers, I believe. And this one is from the Ireland theme pack of papers. But I don't often use this side, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to use this side for this layout. We're not going to see a lot of the pattern that's on here, but the variations in the tone on tone is what I was kind of going for, and excited to utilize. And if people can read the words, fantastic, but that's not really why I chose that paper. So I'm just going to pull those and set those aside. I have two pieces of vellum. I have this darker blue, and I have this kind of teal turquoise greenish color, and you'll see it, you can see in my photos that these papers are going to really work well, I think, with the photos that we have for today. Let's see, I'm going to just move these pages out of the way so we can cut some paper, and then we will come back to those and get some things assembled. So the first two papers are pretty simple cuts. You can see they're really large pieces. So I'm just going to grab my 12-inch trimmer, and I'm going to take, and honestly, it doesn't really matter which one you choose for which paper. You can see this one is a 6x12 and a 5x12. This one is a 5x12 and a 6x10. And when I flip this back over, you'll notice why. So this is the 6x12. This is the 6x10. This blue piece, the light blue piece that's under here. And then these two are both 5x12, as they go all the way across and leave a little bit of a border on the top and the bottom. All right, so it doesn't really matter whether you have green on here and green here, or green here and green here. I feel like it all kind of works together. So I'm gonna do, I think we'll do the sand as designer paper 1, or the sandy colored paper as designer paper number 1. And also, this is very directional if you're trying to read the words. That's why I wanted to point out, I'm not trying to read the words. I don't care about the words, so it doesn't matter, and I can use it for this layout. If you care about the words of the paper that you're using, you're not going to want to use it in this layout, because this layout, the way the cuts are made, you need a paper that can be vertical and then turned horizontally. And that only works when you have a design that it doesn't matter the directionality of it, or you don't care. And in this instance, I don't care. So so that's why I'm using these two, because this one actually, you could argue this one has directionality because it's got lines in it. I'm just not going to stress about it too much. So we're going to cut this at 5 inches. So I'm going to measure this out to 5 on the left-hand side, so over here. And we're going to go ahead, and my paper just shifted, so let me fix that. So we're going to go ahead and cut one at 5 inches. We're going to take and cut one at 6 inches. So I have a little cheater piece right here so that I don't have to pull out my arm, but I can still see where the 6-inch mark is. In case you're wondering, how in the world is she doing that? I'm not clairvoyant, I just cheat. Okay, so, and then we want one piece to be 10 inches and one piece to be 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the 2 inches off to make the 10-inch by 6-inch piece. That way I don't have to pull that arm out. You can see what I mean about the fact that I avoid it. Okay, so then we want our green paper. We're going to cut to 6 inches. Okay. And then we're going to take the remainder and cut it at 5 inches. All right, so this little piece is extra. That 1 inch can just go over to the side. And then we've got, this one is 5 by 12, so we don't have to cut any off of that. Okay, so these two, 6 by 12, 5 by 12. We've got another 5 by 12 and a 6 by 10. All right, and that is all we need for those papers. Those are done. And I'm going to go ahead and put my trimmer away just for a little bit. We will get it back out when we cut mats, but for right now, it's just going to go into its house and stay there. All right, so we're going to use the Border Maker system. This system is fantastic. If you haven't used this before, you should really look into it. And I'm going to show you how to use it right here, but I'm not going to talk you through it really. I'm just going to use it so you can see it in use, okay? But this is fantastic if you don't have the Border Maker system. I find that it is the most economical for my people. So if you are looking for a way to jazz your pages up and get them a little more decoration without spending too much, this is really the best way to go. All right, I'm going to do the base here. The bottom of my border is going to be made with these scallop waves. So I'm going to do that one first because I want the base of it to have this darker color. And this sheet of vellum is from Q the Blue. And it actually has kind of a floral print on it, but once we punch it, no one will notice the floral print. So I'm not worried about that. So we're just going to go ahead and punch, and I'm going to punch 5 separate borders. So this is going to take a minute, but we'll speed it up so you don't have to watch the whole thing, okay? When I am punching a lot of borders, I'll just say before we speed this along, when I'm punching a lot of borders, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just flip the paper to the opposite edge, and then that way I can trim 2 of them off at once. Because you'll notice this is an edge border, not a chain border. And our Elements edge is also an edge border and not a chain border. But we're gonna make this work, and I'm gonna show you a fun way to have it all come together. So stick with me, okay? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to flip this over and find my scallop or my wave or some type of a decorative blade to use to cut off this wave. Given that we've got kind of a scallop thing going, I think I'm going to use my scallop blade, and we'll see what we can get, what kind of a design we can get with that. All right, now when you use your scallop blade, the scallop blade is one of very few that you have to be a little careful with because it is directional. You can see when you look at the blade, and I don't know if you can see this on camera very well. Let me see if I can focus it a little better. You can see when you look at the blade that the points point to the left and the arch points to the right. All right, and so if I just turn this directly over like so, my shutter is facing the left and my points are going to be facing the left and my arch is going to be facing the right. Now, if I don't want it that way, all I have to do is turn it around. All right, and then when I turn it around, ta-da, the points are let's see if you can see that. The points are facing the right now and the arch is facing the left. Okay, so depending on which way my curve is going is going to determine how I want my blade to cut. And since I have a curve going this way, I want my scallop to cut in a similar fashion so that the points are heading that direction. Okay, so that means my shutter is facing the right. So I'm just going to remove my straight blade, put that up there, and put my scallop blade in there. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it, let's see, I'm going to measure this to 3/4 of an inch. So the tips of these waves are hitting the 3/4 inch line. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is go ahead and I've got it already lined up on my shoulder. I do that so automatically now that I often forget whether it's actually happened or not. Okay, so we're just going to trim that off. And you can see that's super cute because it follows the same type of pattern as that wave. So I'm going to do that with all of my punches with this wave so that they are all the same. Now, when you cut with vellum, it does have a tendency to want to scoot. So just go slow and hold your paper in place so that nothing shifts and you'll be happy. Okay, now that I have both of these cut with my scallop, I'm going to put my straight blade back in and I'm going to come in here and probably don't really need to trim it because we're going to punch it, but I'm going to trim it just in case so that I don't have any issues with my punch not being accurate. So I'm just lining it up just barely over the cutting line so that I can trim off the extra. You'll notice too, and I don't know if this is just me, maybe it's just me, but whenever I cut something dark with vellum, I get like a white line. Can you see that? Let me refocus this. Can you see how the edge of my paper is white? I find that really intriguing that that it leaves a white line. Anyway, all right, so let's get the rest of these punched and then we'll trim them up. All right, so I am done with my 5 wave border maker or borders, scallop wave borders. Now we're going to do some elements edge borders. And just so that you have a reference point, if you're really careful about how you trim off those extra little decorative edges after you use your decorative blade, I have 6 inches left of this paper. So so that's helpful to me for a lot of reasons. I might be able to use that for a frame for a mat. We'll see how that goes, but it is available, I think. So we might look at using some of that vellum up as we progress with this layout. Okay, so now we're going to punch 5 of the Elements Edge cartridge. And this one, I love this one. This one is so pretty. This one, I feel like I've used it to represent wind. I've used it to represent waves. I've used it for, it could be used for like curly hair on Santa's beard. This one was just super cute, and I was so happy when they came out with this one. And it's one of the main reasons why I encourage people, even if you look at a punch and you're not sure what in the world you would ever use it for, you know, if you can see yourself using it 1 or 2 ways, get it. Keep it in your stash. Use it, and you'll be surprised how many ideas you get and different ways that you can use a punch. So and it's also just a really nice decorative punch too, just to add a little whimsy sometimes to your layout. So you never know when you are going to find a gem that can be just used all over the place. Okay, so this one we are going to cut. I want my waves to snug up. See how they fit just perfect in there? They snug right up underneath this decorative edge. And I want a little bit of this paper on this side as well. So I want to be able to balance that. So what I'm going to do is measure this so that I know how wide to trim this aqua paper off. So we're just going to put that there. And it looks like if I do trim this at 1 5/8, then we should end up with a really nice decorative line of color under there. So that's what I'm going to do. So we won't have as much left over of this one because we're going to be cutting it wider, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to use my scallop blade again with the shutter facing the right, just like before. And I'm going to line this up at 1 5/8 the best I can. 1 5/8 is kind of a little bit trickier to get because you can see I can't just make this paper hit the 5/8 mark because this little arch right here is higher. So I'm lining that mark up and trying to make sure that that curl hits halfway in between this last block of measurements on my graph. Okay, then my paper will be straight. I'm also consistently with using my lower shoulder to balance my paper on, and that will hopefully give me a similar arch. We'll see. Let's see if it's similar. Ideally it will be, but you know, it all depends, and it might not, but it's okay if it doesn't. Okay, so that's going to go Ah, come on. Work with me here. That's going to go right in there. And it is a little bit off. It's not exact. So the scallop for the blue is not the same as the scallop for the um, green, but that's okay. It'll be fine. So we're going to turn this around, measure this at 1 5/8 again. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and punch and trim, whoops, punch and trim 3 more border strips. All right, so that one is all done. We're gonna trim this one off and we will be off to the races and ready to do some assembly. So we're just gonna get this one trimmed. And we've got roughly 2.5 inches left of this 12-inch piece. That helps you gauge how much paper it requires. I started with a full 12 by 12 of each of these, and I ended up with a half a sheet left of the darker vellum. This one's actually just a hair less than, maybe 1/8 of an inch less than the 2.5 inches. So set that over there. All right, now what we're going to do is come in here and we're going to do some assembly. If you've never used vellum before, vellum is cool because it's see-through. Can you see how you can see the yellow lines of my mat through the paper? Maybe not so much through the blue, but you can definitely see it through the green. And so because of that, we're going to use vellum adhesive. Now the CM vellum adhesive cartridge is blue rather than it being white or green. The permanent is white or clear. The repositionable is green and the vellum is blue. And you can see that I have broken a little piece off. So this might be kind of dicey. Let's see how this works. There are little pieces in the holder here. I may have to just get a new holder because I can see that this isn't going to work. If you push too hard, these can break off and you need those. Okay, so let me grab another holder so that hopefully this will behave a little bit better. Can you see the difference there in those two, the pieces that broke? Yeah, it's not super easy to see, but it is definitely broken, sadly. That one has a goober on the outside, so we'll just use this one. Okay, there we go. And there's no way to fix that, so this one's going in the trash or the recycle bin or whatever you have under your desk. I'm going to save this. You never know when you might need something, if it falls and cracks or your dog chews it, or I don't know. You never know. Okay, so I'm going to use my vellum adhesive and I'm going to place my vellum adhesive on the back of my dark blue. Now, I want you to see something here. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. Just like with fabric, you know how there's a right side and a wrong side when you're working with fabric? The same is true for vellum. There is a right side and there is a wrong side. And it's much more obvious the darker the shade of color that you are using. So just be sure that you put your adhesive on the correct side unless you want that diminished, even more muted look. Okay, I'm going to take my adhesive and, nope, it's my adhesive that's broken. That cartridge. And I think I knew that somewhere in the back of my brain. But let's see if I can get it to work anyway, because I don't want to waste the adhesive. So the little piece that it pushes against when you apply pressure is that larger piece of plastic that you saw me pull out. And when that breaks, it's a little bit tricky because you can't just replace it. Okay, I'm going to make sure I have a little bit on each end so that it will stay down. And vellum adhesive is a little bit different than our other adhesives. We have repositionable comes off in a dot, permanent comes off in these strips, like you can see here. This one is a solid piece of stickiness, okay? And you just sort of have to kind of rip it or tear. So you twist and it breaks off. But you can see how my endings are not super clean with it. That is just the nature of using vellum adhesive, CM's vellum adhesive. So I'm going to place this on here and make sure that my upward sweeps are in between the swells on top. Try to make sure that the amount underneath stays even, this part down here. And we're going to push that down. Now, because this is dark vellum, I can't really see where my adhesive is, so that's really nice. But typically what you need to do when you use vellum, and we may need to do it later, or I may just add adhesive underneath here and call it good. But you would need something like a credit card or your multi-purpose tool or a bone. I can't remember what they call this. It is boning something. Anyway, you need to burnish in that adhesive if you can see it. And when you rub it like this, it disappears. Now you can't really see that this time around because the blue is dark enough that you can't tell there's adhesive underneath there. But if you're using one that is not as dark to layer it on there, then you may want to pay attention to and burnish in those edges. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and assemble the rest of these 4, and then we'll assemble our pages. All right. Now we're going to, I'm just going to put a couple of these things away and out of the way. We don't have as many of them hanging out here. I need to put that back under my trimmer before I wonder what happened to my scallop blade. All right, so I'm going to grab those pages that I set aside right at the beginning, and we're going to take a look at those real quick. So we've got our borders, we've got our cut pieces. I'm going to flip this over. If we need to make a mat, we'll make a mat, but I'm going to just flip this over so we can take a look at the layout. We'll leave it right up there so you can see it. I've got I've got a couple of enlargements that we're going to be working with today, 5x7. So I cut my corresponding photos down to 5x4, and that way they will look really nice and sharp on that page. And the other page is going to have some peekaboo pockets, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I'm going to set those up here, and we'll just work on the base real quick. And this shouldn't really take too awfully long to assemble. So we've got our two 5x12 pieces are going to be on the right hand side of the layout. So I'm just going to set those over there. And the 6x12 and the 6x10 is going to go on the left hand side. Now, whenever you use like a beige like this, it, depending on the base page color, will kind of determine how well you can see that paper. And I'm using Spargo pages. Spargo is one of the 4 colors of pages that Creative Memories offers. And going ahead and putting these in. Spargo is really a neutral color. It has a little bit of a gray, leans a little bit towards the grayscale, which I have found has worked really, really nicely with my Ireland photos because of all of the overcast days that we had. It just really works really well. Now, you may not be doing pages where you had a lot of overcastness to your photos, so Spargo may not be the best choice for you, but I have found it has worked beautifully for my photos. All right, so you'll notice that on these that have a full 12 inches that I am adhering, I put my adhesive in about a half an inch. I put about a half an inch of adhesive in 5 different spots as I go down the page. And that's just a habit that I've gotten into as I have scrapbooked. I feel like that's all it needs. There are some advisors I know who do way more, and some advisors I know who do way less adhesive than I do. So you just have to find what works for your comfort zone and go with it. Okay, and because these are wider on the ends, I'm also adding just a little bit on that short end. Okay, so I placed that first one roughly an inch from the top. The second one's going to go snug right up against the other, and there'll be about an inch left on the bottom if we did it right. It looks good. Okay, so we're gonna, hopefully there won't be any puckers. There we go. Pretty well. That went together pretty well. Okay, now we're going to take each of our borders that we did, and these are going to go across here and across here and across the middle. So like so. And some of these borders are going to get covered. Don't let that bother you. All right. I created these knowing that they were going to get covered because, you know me, I have a lot of pictures, and I'd rather see the pictures than worry about the whether something's been covered up or not. So I can use permanent adhesive, which is what I just started doing, but because this is vellum, just in case I miss, just in case I place it somewhere that's not covered by that dark blue in the front, I'm going to go ahead and use the vellum adhesive. That way I will feel better about it. And I'm going to place this so that the bottom edge of this border is roughly a half an inch from the edge of my page. Okay, now I can go back and take my multi-purpose tool and just rub that down, and just to be sure that it's all nice and adhered on there. I'm going to do the same thing with this top one and the one on the middle seam. And this one I'm going to adhere so that the waves are hitting roughly, I suppose that's about 3/8 of an inch from the top rather than a half of an inch. But I think that'll be good. So like so. And I'm just going to rub that down. And then we'll come back in and do the same thing with this guy. Because I'm using my vellum adhesive, I'm not really as concerned about where that adhesive is hitting. So it just gives me a little more freedom. And this one I just put right over the center, so that from the edge up here to the edge down here, right in the middle is the seam where those two papers come together. Okay. Then over here on the left-hand side, we are going to do, this one has to be done in a very specific order. You could have done these three in any order you want, but this side needs to be done in a very specific order. So I'm going to take one of the borders that I made and I'm going to flip it over so it's upside down. Then I'm going to measure it out so that this edge is at my 6-inch mark. Okay, and that hits right at the point and right at the beginning of one of the element punch. Okay, so it looks like that. We're cutting it apart at 6 inches. Then each of these, we're going to add some vellum adhesive to the back. All right, and then these are going to go right in the middle of the seam for that 10-inch piece of paper, the 10 by 6 that we have. And because my border is wider than the border in the sample, I'm just going to make the edge border, the distance between the top of my border and the edge of my page, I'm going to make that match this one on this side and this one down here. Okay, so that it's just all the same. In the sample, it is at the same height too, so that's not a deviation. But because my border is so much wider, it just makes sense. Okay, then we're going to add some adhesive down this last border, number 5. Okay, and this one's going to go sideways, and it's going to go up and down right here. We're going to put that so that, again, that edge of where those papers come together is roughly right in the middle of the punch. And we're going to place it just like that. Grab this and go down it just to make sure. Oh dear, I caught the edge of that. We'll flip it over and do it this way. That works better. Okay, so just like that. All right, so now we have our bases together. Let's take a look at the photos that we have and see how this is going to come together. Okay, so these photos are going to be on this side, and these photos are going to be on this side. Let's do these first. We may need to do some trimming, because if we don't, we won't be able to see any of that border at all. and I would like to see just a little bit of it. So these actually work really well. They're just about perfect for where that border sits. And actually, I might even tuck them underneath that vellum just a little bit. I think that would be kind of a nice effect. I don't want to hide my husband though too much. Okay, so like that. And then these over here, I think we're going to need to just trim just a little bit so that they are not hiding everything. So let me get my photo trimmer out. And let's take a look here. So this one is really more about my husband and these signs. We don't really need all of the road. So I'm going to just kind of trim this down, and we'll make this one a 2-inch photo. And all we lose is a little bit of his chest, his manly chest, and some of the road that we don't really need to see, which is fine. We can tuck that under, and isn't that just cute like that? Okay, and it looks like we need to lose quite a bit of this one in order to not cover up the border. So we might actually end up covering up a little of that border, but that'll be okay. We need to lose about 1.5 inches of this photo in order to make that work, which kind of breaks my heart because I really love the kind of multi-dimensional shadows of those mountains, but maybe we'll cut more of it off down here so that we don't lose that. Okay, so let's see. This was 7 inches. We really need it to come down to 5.5, but I don't want to take all of that from down here. So let's see. We'll cut it at 6. Let's cut it at 6 and we'll see what it looks like. Let's see. You know what? I think I would be okay with it just like that. I think I'm okay with that because I don't want to cut the mountains. Okay, so let me go ahead and get these adhered, and I'm not going to worry about matting any of them. Matting is a nice touch, but I just don't have the room, and I don't want to sacrifice the backing or anything like that to add just for the sake of adding a mat. Okay, so we're going to go with this. So I think I mentioned in the introduction, these pictures are taken at a site where they filmed a portion of Star Wars, The Last Jedi. And we are super fans of Star Wars and all things related to that. So we were excited to be able to go to this site. As you can see, the rocks here are extremely jagged. The day was a little bit stormy. It had been raining a bit. And so as a result, the sea was rocking, and it was perfect for this whole scene that we were getting to witness. So that was pretty cool. They have signs up all around Dunmore Head that say site of Star Wars, The Last Jedi. They're very proud of that, and they should be. So it's a cool thing. There's that side. We're going to do this side. And As you can imagine, this side's going to be a little bit different too. So let me get these pictures offloaded here and we'll talk a little bit more about this side and why it's different. So you've heard me mention in videos here recently that I really, really wished that CM had a 4x5 or 4x5 1/4 inch peekaboo pocket. And they don't make them. It's not one of the options. So I have submitted a request that they consider making it so that these digital prints that are different size don't have to go in a 4x6 or be cut down even smaller into a different peekaboo pocket. But since I needed peekaboo pockets that didn't have an extra 3/4 inch out there, I made my own. So if you have ever had the need of customizing a peekaboo pocket, I know people in the past have suggested in the comments different ways that you could do it. I have figured out a way to do it where I didn't have to go buy a new tool. I actually used a tool from my kitchen and it worked great. And so there is a video I just made right before filming this one to show you how I did this. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is to shorten a 4x6 peekaboo pocket so that it will accommodate my photos that are 5.5x4. And I came to my husband with the quandary of what do I do, because I didn't want this extra 3/4 inch out here that was just unused and kind of flopping in the breeze. And he came up with a great idea of let's just use a food saver. So if you have a food saver in your house, go get it if you need to do this. Maybe you don't need to do this, but if you order the digital size photos, then they will come an unusual size and they won't fit completely in here. So you might need to do this. So I measured the photo and I measured the length of my peekaboo pocket. And then I put a mark on either side, which you can barely see, but there was a black mark right here on the little webbing that's on the edges. And for the purposes of this video, I've actually drawn a line all the way across. But when I initially did it, I just put marks here. And then I centered those marks on the heat strip to seal it. Let me show you how it's done. So I'm using a compact food saver. This is by Tilia. It's an Italian company. I have no idea if they still make these or not, because this one is probably at least 20 years old. But it's pretty easy. You just lift up the arm, and this strip right here is the strip that you're going to seal on. So ignore the little extra tidbits that you see in there. So you can see the line that I drew across. That's where we want to seal, to put the new seal on the end here. Okay, I'm going to put that right on the center of that sealing space and anchor my hand the best I can to keep it in the same place. Lower the arm, and then I'm going to push the on button and the seal button. You only have to push the seal button for about 5 seconds, and you can see that right on that black line there is now a seal. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but it is there. I can push my fingers inside this pocket and you can see that now it no longer opens beyond that point. So then I can take this back to my workspace and put my photos in it, and they'll be safe. So I'm going to just do one more. This one does not have a line across it, but I'm going to just line those marks up in the center of that strip and the best I can, and put that handle down. Turn it on. I'm sorry, it is kind of noisy, but I have to turn it on and keep the on button pushed, and then hold this down while I push the seal button over here. So here we go. And there we go. Now we've got 2 sealed envelopes. And we probably don't even need to hold it down a full 5 seconds and we would be okay. Let me see. So I've got 1, 2, and 3. Sorry, you didn't see the third one. That was my practice. So let's go back to my workspace and we'll continue with this layout. All right, so now we have all 3 of our peekaboo pockets sealed, but I need to trim off this extra flap or it won't do me any good to have sealed them. So what I'm going to do is just come right in here and I can see where that line is. I'm going to put that line just to the left of my cutting line right here. And to make sure, I can pull out my sight line and I can see where it's going to cut, because you don't want to cut off the area that you just sealed. You want to cut just to the right of that. So just double check it with that sight line and you can tell where your blade's going to cut. Push down hard as you can. You do have to push a little bit harder than you would with your paper, but then you've got your professional looking sealed peekaboo pocket that's custom sized. And you could do this with any size peekaboo pocket that you need to modify so that it fits your photos. Say if you're using doing a heritage album and maybe you're using the 3.5 by 3.5s that have the white border around the edge that that many of us are fortunate enough to have, you could certainly find, if CM doesn't have a peekaboo pocket that fits the size of that photo, you could just get one that's a little bit larger and seal your own, and then you're good to go. Okay, so I'm just going to seal or cut. I'm going to trim off these other 2, and I'm going to check each one, because with the glares from these lights that I use, sometimes I can't see super well to tell where it's going to line up. So I'm going to use that and feel good and confident. There's another one. That one's done. Let's do this one. And you'll notice that, see, this is the one that I drew the line on, and it's still there in a tiny little bit, just the tiniest little bit. So be careful if you're going to draw your line. Maybe draw your line just a hair beyond where you need to cut, and then that way you don't have to worry about it still hanging out and being present after you have trimmed your peekaboo pocket up. That would be my recommendation anyway, if you feel like you need the line. If you don't need the line, so much the better. Then you don't have to worry about it as much. It also depends on what kind of a pen you use to draw on here. I used a Sharpie roller pen, 0.5, so it gives me a really fine line. You can see that's really tiny, so tiny you almost can't even see it on camera. But I really did have to kind of not put a whole lot of pressure on it in order to get that line to actually draw. When I put too much pressure, the roller wouldn't roll, and it would not let ink out. So all right, so let's get back to my layout and we'll put these to use. But I customized these 4x6. They used to be 4x6 peekaboo pockets. Now they are 4x5.25. Actually, 4x5. Yeah, we're pretty close to 4x5.25. And they're going to be perfect for these photos, because these are all digitally printed, and so they are all that kind of odd size. So I'm just going to go ahead and load these pictures that need to be in the peekaboo pockets. And the peekaboo pockets, remember, get loaded on top of the page protector. So we only are going to be working with this photo on the bottom for now. But And you can see I've already loaded these. So that one is done. And I just need one more. So we'll use this one for these photos right here. And I'm not sure how you say this, but I think it's Kane Dinkle. Dinkle. That was right next to where it said Dunmore Head, film location for Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And somewhere that we were visiting, I think it might have been at the sheep, at the little, oop, look at that. I must have not held it down because my seal is coming up. So let me use this other one. It's a learning curve. So make sure if you watch that video that I did, make sure you hold it down for a full 5 seconds so that you get that's good and sealed. Okay, so here is the other one. We're gonna stick that down here. Anyway, this photo was, I think, related to where we did the sheep, where we held and fed the sheep. So kind of cool. We knew we were headed to Dunmore, so we took extra photos of that. But you can see how craggy it all is and how it's just very much the jagged edge of the island, which you don't often get to see or think about when you visit somewhere. I have pictures from Hawaii of the jagged edge of around Oahu as well. And but it's not as jagged for some reason. The lava flow there was much more cool, maybe because it actually was from an eruption, where this island actually, I believe, broke off, millennia ago. So a little bit different. Okay. I'm going to line up my pictures so they are at the same height, or the lines are the same this way, because that will make my page a little less chaotic and look a little more organized. Now, if I stare at this layout for a little while and decide that maybe I was wrong, maybe I need to matte something, I do still have that dark blue, this dark blue vellum. I could go back and matte a couple things, and these two photos right here would probably be my first choice for going and matting, along with maybe one of the 5x7s on the other page, but I think there's not enough room on the other page, so we're just gonna knot. But you can see how these peekaboo pockets, now this one's not gonna play nice, but you can see how they fit perfectly over the picture underneath, where they did not fit perfectly over the picture underneath before. All right, so that's cool. That's done. Let's bring this page down. And we do probably need to do a little bit of embellishments on this page. Let's check it out and see. So they've got embellishing here, here, and here. And so that would mean we would have most of the embellishing on this page, but like I said, there's not a lot of room. So I think what I would probably do is put something here and possibly here, or maybe more like right in here, and then something in here. But I do need somewhere that I can add just a little bit of journaling So I could just do a little journaling right in here. Or I could hide some journaling up underneath a photo. I wouldn't want to use this photo, I don't think, though, because it'll get caught on this border. But we could sneak it behind maybe this 5x7 here. There would be plenty of room to sneak a journal card behind there, or put it in on the inside. And then that would be cute. Let's see what I can figure out for embellishments, and we'll get that done too. All right. Do any of you have one of these cool CM embellishment trays? These are super fun, and they make sorting through your embellishments much easier because you don't have to worry about them getting lost and falling off your table and that kind of thing. So we're going to do that. Oh, see, mine's upside down. That's okay. So we got a few here. These are from the Totally Tonal Leaves collection, which doesn't necessarily work with water, but on the other hand, it's kind of cool. So we're going to just make this work. The colors are right, and that makes me happy. So okay, let's go with that for now and put together a couple of clusters. Let's get some repositionable adhesive, and okay, you know what? Let's use, that one's been giving me a little bit of a fit here lately. I need to take it apart and fix it. But I don't want to do that right this minute. So we're going to pretend I grabbed this one. And I'm going to put that right underneath this other photo. So it's almost like it's a little tab. Wonderful day. And then I've got a little shamrock and a little accent behind it. And then we're going to, on this side, do a little love this. You guys know this is my tricky part, doing the embellishments. I have in my mind all these beautiful embellishments and clusters and things, but I don't always put them together that way. So just is what it is. We can, knowing that we've got all of these peekaboos in here, I think I'm going to put that kind of in the middle like so, and on top of that border, so that the peekaboos will, they won't cover it up completely, but they will, it'll be an accent kind of. All right, and I think that's all I'm going to do, because I don't really want to draw attention away from the photos any more than that. Let's get a different perspective and look here on my, see if I can focus that a little better. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right, I think I'm done. I think we're going to go with that. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your, I always love to hear your comments, and look forward to seeing and reading your thoughts. This was fun. I like to try to do things that are new, but they don't always turn out the way I think they're going to. This one I think was pretty close, so it's good. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Oh, and before I go, I want to wish my mom a very happy 80th birthday, which actually was a couple days ago as I'm recording this now, but we're celebrating it tomorrow. So she's 80. Woohoo! Happy birthday, Mom. Love you. Have a great day, guys. Until next time, have many more creative moments. Take care.